Hey, everybody. The Kings 7-game win streak comes to a screeching halt in Milwaukee. The Kings lost this game in the first quarter when the Bucks outscored them 47-26 to final 130-115. But you look at the big picture, great road trip with wins at Boston and Chicago. Now you come home to take on the Houston Rockets. But that first quarter really cost the Kings tonight, Ryno.
Yeah, unless you're Eric Dickerson, all streaks are meant to come to an end at some point, Grant.
Yeah, you didn't think the Kings were going to go undefeated the rest of the way, did you?
Yeah, not me. I didn't have them undefeated, but I did change my sweatshirt at halftime to try to change the karma around. Yeah, Grant, you've been in the NBA for longer, or almost as long as I've been born. That's a pretty hard quarter to come back from, my friend.
Yeah, a 47-point quarter. And we were talking about this at halftime with Jerry. I don't know if I've seen a better quarter played by anyone this year. I like the way the Kings played in the second half. I don't have any problem with that. They outscored the Bucks in both the third and the fourth quarters. The fourth quarter was kind of garbage time. But, again, you didn't have Malik Monk. And I mentioned this at halftime. I wouldn't say Malik Monk is the Kings' best player, but you could make an argument that he's their most valuable player.
Grant, he's their only point guard. He is their only point guard that pushes the pace. If you don't have him on the floor, Domantas Sabonis is handling the point guard duties, which means he's not doing what he does best. He only got 9 shots tonight, and he was 6 of 9 still, nonetheless. Found a way to get another double-double. So it's so important for this team to have somebody that puts pressure on the defense, that gives you the ability to run multiple sets and different looks within a game. Without him, you can't.
Fox was not good tonight. He played 38 minutes, 9 of 23. I like the way he rebounded, but, he turned the ball over 4 times with 6 assists. Just didn't have a good game.
No, settled for the three-pointer. Way too many. 8 for him, only 6 assists. And, what did you think of Coach going to the two-man game? They ran the pick and roll predominantly with him and DeRozan as opposed to him and Sabonis.
Well, I mean, DeRozan was very good in this game. I mean, he ended up with 28 points. He shot 50% from the floor. I like the fact that he got to the line 9 times and he made 8 free throws.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Makes a difference. And there was a couple of calls that arguably should have been and ones. He didn't get those, but I'll tell you what the Bucks got. They got 3 and ones to end the second quarter and a triple. So regardless of that first quarter, that is bad momentum, Grant, to be going into the second half with.
Yeah, they were down 21 entering the locker room at halftime. That's a very difficult thing to come back from against a team like Milwaukee. And, the Bucks aren't as good as they've been in the past, but they still have a star in Adetokounmpo. Lopez is a tough matchup. Lillard, listen, I thought Prince played a very good game for Milwaukee tonight.
100%. I'm with you. And I thought maybe, I'm not going to say this was the Toronto game of a couple of seasons ago, because every team doesn't have the personnel, Grant, that Milwaukee has, but they spread the Kings defense out. Yep. The Kings are so good when you get things a little bit more compacted because of that help, and that really trashed things. And Lopez, I mean, he's shooting the 3 ball from the logo, Grant. Holy crap.
He's got great range. He's one of those guys that can beat you down low. He can stretch the floor. He's an excellent 3-point shooter. There are many instances where the Kings have tried to get Brook Lopez and have not been able to do so.
Still think he'd be a good fit for this team?
I do, yes. Yeah, I think he'd be a good fit for any team. I think he's just a player that knows how to play.
Yeah, it's a very good point. They also have a really good two-way player that they're going to have to probably elevate if he continues playing as well as he has. And then Portis does what he does for the Bucks team. And Giannis, Grant, he's just one of one at times.
So you end the road trip with an outstanding 2-1. There's nobody that would have said, no, I'm not taking 2-1 in this road trip. Every single Kings fan would have said, yep, give me 2-1. We won't even leave Sacramento. So it's still an excellent road trip. You're 20-20. You're basically tied with the Spurs for the 9th and the 10th spot. And again, you go home and play the second best team in the West, the Houston Rockets, who you've already beat once this year. And I think the key is you got to have Monk back for that game on Thursday night.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Or you've got to change the game plan up to a degree. You got to find a way to put some pressure on the defense offensively. In the half court, there was just the Kings went as lateral and backwards as they did forwards. If you did the game tape on it. But Houston, Grant, that's going to be a physical game. Kings are going to have to bring the big boy pants to that one.
Yeah, and that's going to be a festive atmosphere with TNT in the building.
No doubt. No doubt. Kings usually play pretty well on TNT.
Yeah, the place will be rocking, and that's going to be a big-time game. The Rockets have won 7 of 10 games. They just beat Memphis. I mean, let's face it, they're the real deal, right? I mean, they're a really good team.
So looking at the Western Conference, Grant, I think those 3 teams at the top, Oklahoma City, Houston, and Memphis, I think those are your top 3 with Oklahoma City at top. How about
I would agree with you. I would agree with that.
I don't see movement there. But from there, I think that things can shuffle a little bit more.
Now, I would say one thing. The Kings are getting a break on Thursday because the Rockets play tomorrow in Denver.
True. That's a great point.
I mean, you're getting the Rockets on the second night of a back-to-back in front of a nationally televised audience. That's a big advantage.
That's an excellent point. You almost have to do what the Kings did to the Heat, even though the Heat were resting in Sacramento when the Kings played the back-to-back. You just got to outrun them. That's where Malik Monk comes into play, Grant. He pushes that pace so much more for this Kings team, especially in the half court.
So, again, that's not an easy trip, the Denver to Sacramento. The only advantage, you gain an hour when you come back, but it's a long flight, especially in the wintertime. I've done that trip many a times. It's not a picnic, all right? And it's not easy. So the Kings have the table set very well. You got to just hope that Monk can come back and play. All right, let's get back to tonight's game. We talk about the start of this game, right? The Kings got blown off the floor in the first quarter, all right? They got blown out off the floor in the first quarter, and that was it. Basically, the game was over at the end of the first quarter tonight.
Yeah. Look, with the matchups, it was never a game, especially without Malik Monk, that I felt like the Kings had a great opportunity of stacking stops on and then also pushing the pace because they were just slowing it down. Giannis, half court, Dame, half court, doing whatever the hell he wanted. And that makes for a tough recipe.
Don't forget, a Rant with Grant is coming up on the show. I need your rant ideas. And we will do that a little bit later here on the postgame show with a Rant with Grant. In the meantime, we do invite your phone calls if you want to get in on the program, as the Kings win streak is over at 7. But I think they have a really good chance to get going again with the second night of a back-to-back against Houston and then a bad Washington team coming in.
Agreed. And really quick, if you do call the show, try not to DM us when you're in the waiting room because it blocks our screens. Causes a little bit of havoc. So stay away from the DMs, but we do invite your calls. What's going on? Christy beat since Adelman? Best since Adelman?
You know what? Listen, you know what? I'm not taking calls with gimmicks. All right. If you want to come on the show, have a normal name. All right. Don't forget about gimmicks. All right. We're not in elementary school here. All right. We're trying to do a post game show. All right. You either have a name or you don't have a name, but we're not dealing with nonsense. All right.
Reminds you too much of the guy that was calling early in the season. He did the gimmicks every time. He'd come on and just go nuts, and then you kicked him off and blocked him.
Get a freaking life. Seriously. This is not a comedy show. It's a post-game show. All right. If you want to come on the show, come on the show. We would love to hear from you. But, stop with this nonsense. We're not in kindergarten here.
Hang has an idea for your rant
Yeah.
about Giannis getting all-star treatment. Shake my head.
Well, he's an MVP. He is an all-star. And I think he's one of the most gifted players I've ever watched play courtside. Of all the players I've ever announced in my 32 years, and I went through Kareem, Magic, Jordan, right? We can go Bird. We can go on and on. Very few players took my breath away the way Giannis did when you watched him courtside. So I don't have a problem with what he gets. The guy's a legitimate superstar.
You kind of watched Giannis change because you saw him from right when he came in and as he progressed. Did you see right at first that special trait? Did you know he was going to be somebody, or did it exceed your expectations?
Well, I'll share this story with you. We were in the media room I was sitting with Jerry having dinner with one of the Kings coaches, who I will not name.
Okay.
And Jerry and I were talking about Giannis. This was early in his career, about how amazing this guy was going to be. And the Kings coach was there and said, I'm not really that impressed by him.
Interesting.
And after dinner, that individual got up, and Jerry and I looked at each other and we were like, did he say what I thought he said? And Jerry goes, I was just going to ask you the same question. He goes, did he say he's not that impressed by Giannis? And Jerry goes, I don't know what the hell he's looking at. Giannis impressed both of us early on in his career. and we just thought it was going to be a matter of time before he could take over the league.
Yeah, his body changed so dramatically too,
Yeah.
Grant, over the years. Very dramatically.
I've never seen any player, including Dominique, including Michael, including Dr. J. I've never seen anyone cover as much real estate with 2 steps as Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Oh,
It's
boy.
absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I've seen him play from afar, not in quite the good seats that you had been in to see him.
It's breathtaking to watch him play.
So Anita chiming into the conversation, if I can get back there. She's saying it was a 2-point game. My computer is acting up. Sorry.
Here, let me see if I can help you out here.
Yeah,
You want
thanks,
to get Anita's
buddy.
comment?
Yeah.
Sure. All right, here. We got so many messages coming
I
in.
know.
We always appreciate all the messages on the chat
Oh,
line.
I got it.
though-
I
Okay.
got it. There we go. It was a 2-point game when Herder subbed in for Fox in the first about 6:30 mark, and it did not go well after that. Still need
Yeah.
bench help.
Yeah, the bench was terrible tonight.
I don't know if I can really blame it all on the bench.
No.
You're playing 2 different styles, Grant.
Yes.
If you expect those bench guys to come in, and no disrespect to them, they're not creators. They are finishers. And if you're not setting them up, like Doug Christie talks about getting the ball to a guy where you've gotten the advantage to make the pass, now make a good pass where it's in his sweet spot. If you're not doing that for those guys, they're not going to thrive at their best, Napes.
You're 100% correct. You're not. And I think without Monk now, you see what happens with the rotation. And Fox did not play well. And you keep bringing this up, and I don't disagree with you. I just don't know if De'Aaron Fox if his future is in Sacramento. I really don't. I think with the makeup of the team right now, if you're able to make a deal that's attractive, maybe you make that deal before the deadline.
Grant, you need, in my opinion, a high-level point guard next to De'Aaron Fox to have him most effective, because it's a trade-off the way this roster is constructed right now with DeMar DeRozan on it. If you don't have a point guard separating DeMar and Fox, you're not going to get the most out of Sabonis. You know, Sabonis didn't take his first shot attempt in the second half until the 11-minute mark, or 1 minute into the fourth quarter.
It's inexcusable.
And then he gets a second shot, 2 for 2, a dunk. And it's like, it's one of those things.
Inexcusable.
It is. And so I go back to you here, regardless of whether you keep Fox or not, is point guard really the position this team needs to be looking at?
It's a great debate. It's a great question. And it is something that we're going to be talking about on a regular basis leading up to the trade deadline.
Because the way that they have the guards on this team, you've got these hybrids. Devin Carter, more of a 2 than a 1. Keon Ellis, more than a 2 than a 1. Malik Monk, more of a 2 than a 1. He just happens to be the best at distributing on this team. But that's how everybody at least plays their best in my eyes. So
again, the final tonight was 130 to 115. Happy to have everybody on board as the win streak is over. You know, you look at the bench tonight, and we not that the starters played well when they began the game, but again, you really got nothing at all from your bench, and you had a rough game for Devin Carter in this one.
Yeah, 100%. Dame Lillard gave him a couple of those moments.
Yep.
Welcome to the NBA. And it's going to happen. We can't expect, Grant, for this kid to step in and play flawlessly, especially when you miss half of a season, half of your rookie season.
And I think, again, a real key here as we move forward is you're catching Houston on the second night of a back-to-back. Will Monk be on the floor? That's going to be huge for Sacramento.
Yeah, the groin kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So you hope it's more precautionary more than anything else. Because I think you see more of tonight than you'll see of the previous 7 games without Monk against Houston.
Don't forget about New Works Plumbing. They've got a fixed view. They're available around the clock, 24/7. NewWorksPlumbing.com or SackServicePlumbing.com, but NewWorksPlumbing.com is what I use, NEWWRXPlumbing.com, or call the number on your screen. They are awesome. Remember, New Works Plumbing for all of your plumbing needs and repairs. Kings, though, tonight, don't have it. They lose 130 to 115.
Okay, so I guess this is the problem this fan base is having, in my opinion. Especially if you are a hardcore Fox fan, you're calling me a Fox hater, bring it. I'm not a Fox hater. Look at the styles in which this basketball team plays. Fox can be very good with this team, but you need a high-level point guard next to him, because if you don't have one next to him, you are now asking Domas to distribute, which then puts you without a guard getting the ball to other people. Grant, would you say in the 2 games we've seen Fox back with the guys versus the 3 without him, just the eyeball test with the style of basketball, what are the differences that you see?
Well, the style of basketball, the ball movement, first of all, let's just start with the ball movement. Okay. The 3 games that you're referring to was maybe the best 3 games I've seen Sacramento play all year.
Absolutely. I agree. And it's not a knock on Foxy, y'all. It's just the type of player that Foxy is.
Right.
He's an ISO guy. He doesn't do a lot of creating for everybody else. And Grant, you know this as well as anybody. You were right there on the ride with the 2001, 2002 team. When that ball's moving, magic can happen.
Yep.
It can elevate normal run-of-the-mill players to look like great all-star level players, Grant.
It keeps everyone happy because everyone's touching the rock, everyone's getting opportunities, and it makes for a very cohesive and happy locker room.
Bingo. And so I think that is the internal battle, both between the fan base and probably what the team, to a degree, is looking at. So you're not getting the best out of Sabonis. Let's just put it that way. If you don't have a guard or Monk, somebody like that on the floor at the same time.
Yeah. And, all-star selections are going to be coming out soon. And I think it would be a crime not to have Sabonis on the all-star team this year. He wasn't on the all-star team last year.
Yeah.
But I think it would be a crime to not have him on this year. And he will be the only one on the Kings that should be on the all-star team, in my opinion.
You think he'll make it? Do you feel
No, I don't think he'll make it, but I think he should make it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he should be there, no doubt. He's up there in the fan voting. Him and Fox are between, I believe, 7 and 9, respectively, in their positions. But
which doesn't do any good. That's not going to get you on the All-Star team.
It does not. But I think it speaks to Sabonis even more this year because you bring in DeMar DeRozan, Grant. That's supposed to take looks away from Domas. That's supposed to change things to a degree, and the guy just keeps getting better and better and better.
And I don't know where the Kings will be record-wise when the All-Star game gets upon us and the final selections are made. But the big picture is they're still 20 and 20. The big picture is they're still tied for 9th and 10th in the West. So that doesn't help in that department either.
I know how much you love power rankings, but a mutual friend of ours put out a tweet, and there's a publication that after this week with the Kings, they had them 17th in the power rankings the week before. They still have them at 17 after this run.
How could that be?
It tells you the way the national media looks down on this team. You have to do twice as much to get half the recognition.
Right. Now, in all fairness, and I've gone over this because I'm going to do so, the Kings got extremely, extremely lucky during that win streak on several of the games with who was not playing for the other team.
Fair.
But what the Kings did in Boston the other night against a fully healthy Boston team should open up a lot of eyes that do not sleep on the Kings.
No doubt. The way that they play, let's go back to that really quick. It's that style that they play that tires out other teams, because tonight they didn't have to work very hard in Milwaukee defensively, the Bucks. They just kind of stood back. They waited. They came to you, the Kings coming to them. And against Boston, that for a team that's a jump shooting team, which most teams are, Grant, that affects the legs as you get later into the game. They only shot 11 for 41 from beyond the arc.
Well, there you go. Somebody said the Kings will probably be 10 games above 500 at the break. You're delusional. They're not going to be 10 games above 500 at the All-Star break. Let's be a little practical about this. But they have gotten themselves back in the mix, okay? They are, again, they were 13 and 19. They're now 20 and 20. And that's damn good. Okay, let's just call it the way it is. They have put themselves in a really good position. But let's look at the schedule coming up, Ryno, because you have Houston coming up next, and we talk about Houston, who's playing tomorrow night in Denver. Then you have Washington, who's really, really bad. Then you have, there's the schedule. Then you have Golden State, who's playing horribly. But then look at this, Ryno. At Denver, at the Knicks, at Brooklyn, at Philly. And as you know, with Philly, if Embiid plays, that's a whole different ball game.
Sure.
Then you have at Oklahoma City and at Minnesota. Okay. So you better go at least 2-1 on this 3-game homestand. You got to beat Washington and you have to beat Golden State. I think you can go 3-0 because I think you're catching Houston at a perfect time. But you're not running the table on that road trip. Let's just be honest, okay?
No, you're not. But I think this last stretch, if nothing else, it tells you they can play with those teams. They just have to play a certain way, Grant. I mean, you have to have a couple of those, like you said, Embiid. You saw what the Kings did tonight with Giannis. Ain't going to be much better with Embiid, Nabes.
No, you're 100% correct. And then the 4 games before the All-Star break, you have New Orleans, at Dallas, at New Orleans, at New Orleans. And you might say, boy, that's great. But guess what? New Orleans now is getting healthy. They won in Chicago tonight, 119-113. Okay. Right. And they're expected to get even more players back, assuming that they don't have any more injuries between now and February, which with New Orleans seems unlikely. But you had Zion Williamson on the floor tonight with Trey Murphy, DeJounte Murray, CJ McCollum, right? So they're getting healthy. They don't have Brandon Ingram, but guess what? He might be back for those games. And the Kings 3 times against a nightmare matchup for them. Don't forget those games.
It's a great point. And remember the game earlier this season in New Orleans, they had half of a G League roster, and it was one of by far the most physical games the Kings played all season. They barely got out of there with a win. It's just a bad matchup. Everybody there is athletic and can play any position for the most part on the court.
And Michael says they almost beat the Celtics their last game. You're right. They did. They almost beat Boston. So, and how about Denver right now? They lead Dallas at half, 71-45. Now, Dallas is still without Luka. Luka is not even being looked at until the last week of January. They do have Kyrie Irving back tonight after missing 5 games. But you can see the Mavericks, without Luka, they're just another team.
Yep. Great point. So Flores says this, without Fox, who's going to pick up the scoring on a consistent basis? Napes, you say.
Well, they just showed without Fox that they had no problem scoring. Correct? They didn't have any problem scoring the ball without Fox.
And I think I hate to, well, I'm going to wait on that. But I think the defense sometimes can actually, on the whole, be better. Because, Grant, the conversation we've had on the Kings court, and tell me if you agree with this, Fox is not a consistent player. He is a clutch player.
Yes. Listen, we're not anti-Fox. I know a lot of people are. We acknowledge that he's a very good player. I mean,
100%.
And anyone that thinks he's not a very good player is delusional. He's a very good player. I think personally, he's reached his ceiling as a player, which is fine. And his ceiling to me is just under top tier. Okay. And again, that's fine too. But when you look at what he might be getting paid and his future, and he's not getting any younger, which eventually his speed will be diminished a little bit, that makes me a little bit nervous when I look at the future of this team.
Yeah, it's a good point. The speed's only going to get a little bit more tied up as he goes along. And I just think, again, I go back to this. You said it. We saw this team be able to score. I don't think this is a team, because you saw them, Grant, in 22-23 have the highest rated offensive rating and put up a ton of threes and points. This Kings team doesn't need to score 130 points to win. If you look at their defensive rating through their 7-game streak,
right,
number 1 in the NBA. Number 1, they can play some defense. This team scores 115 every single night. I think most nights it's a race to 100 points, and they've got a shot, Nabes.
We'll see. That's why you play 42 more games. If he figures out the 3-ball, he could be James Harden level lethal. He's in his 8th year. If he hasn't figured out the 3-ball by now, it's not going to happen, all right?
Yeah. Wouldn't you say there's enough of a three ball on this team that you don't necessarily need those from him? I mean, if you look at the 3-point shooters on this team, Keon Ellis leading the team in 3-point shooting. Domantas Sabonis, although he's not getting a ton of opportunities there. Keegan's having a down year shooting there. Kevin, a little bit more of a down year, but I think part of that isn't due to the ball movement and them not getting great looks, and it's not talked about nearly enough.
42 games left for the Kings at 20 up and 20 down. Hey, I want to tell you about Sunrise Landing, a beautiful residential community in Calusa. You go to calusasunrise.com and you can check out everything with Sunrise Landing from Blazona Development. And remember that there's no Melrose at Sunrise Landing. There's no homeowners at Sunrise Landing, and the location is great. Good access, all right? So you got I-5, Highway 45, Highway 20, and then it's adjacent to the Calusa Golf and Country Club. Go to calusasunrise.com. That's calusasunrise.com and check out everything with Sunrise Landing in Calusa. 130 to 115 tonight. The Bucks won this game in the first quarter. I mean, when you look at the rest of the game, right? So here's the second quarter. 28-28. Third quarter, Kings 28, Bucks 27. Fourth quarter, Kings 33, Bucks 28. You lost the game in the first quarter. Plain and simple. First 12 minutes, game over.
That's where it went. And this is not a team that plays well from behind traditionally, especially if they've got bad defensive matchups. They've done it a couple times on this.
Not without Monk.
Not without Monk. Exactly right. He's your bulldog. That's what he is. Mr. Energy.
Yep. They better hope that he's on the floor for Houston. But again, I still like the Kings against Houston with them coming off a game the night before against Denver. So this is a really good opportunity for Sacramento, because then you have Washington and Golden State. You could hit the road at 23-20. Actually, you should hit the road at 23-20.
Does this team dip below 500 the rest of the season?
They shouldn't. I mean, I still am looking at that schedule coming up. That's daunting. After the All-Star break, and I'm just asking myself, who are the real Sacramento Kings? The problem I have right now is I don't know who the real Sacramento Kings are, because I'm not a true believer in the 7-game win streak. I guess what I'm saying is the Kings weren't as bad as they were playing before they made the coaching change, and they're not as good as they showed during this win streak. That's what I believe. I believe they're somewhere in the middle of that.
I agree with you there. Now, let me take it to the next step. I think tonight we saw a closer version to the Mike Brown Sacramento Kings. I think in Boston, you saw a better representation of what the Doug Christie Sacramento Kings want to look like.
Yes.
With sharing the ball, with the ball movement. So, Grant, which way do you lean there? Which team has better success over the long haul?
Yeah, well, it's a fabulous question. So you ask me, I want to get back to your previous question. Do I think the Kings will be below 500 again? I think they shouldn't be, but I've already talked about the schedule. Here's another part of the schedule, right? You come out of the All-Star break, and after Golden State and Charlotte, you're at Utah, which shouldn't be a problem, but then you're at Houston, you're at Dallas, you're at Denver, you're home San Antonio, at the Clippers, home Knicks, right? That's another really difficult stretch coming up for the Kings. But, again, we talk about 5-game increments. Well, the Kings just, in my opinion, finished an A+.
Yep.
Even though they lost tonight, I'm giving them an A+ for their 5 games, okay? Their last 5 games, 129-99 Golden State, came from behind in 2 overtimes to beat Miami, 123-118, blew out Boston, beat Chicago, both on the road, and lost to Milwaukee. So I'm giving them between a 95 and a 100, A+ being near 100, 95 being an A. I'm giving them at least a 95, all right? Here are your next 5 games. Houston, Washington, Golden State, Denver, and the Knicks. 3-2's got to be the minimum there, because all 3 of these home games you should win. And I say you should beat Houston when they play the night before in Denver. I really believe you should beat Houston on the second night of a back-to-back. And then Golden State, you have to win. They've been awful. And then you're at Denver, which is going to be very challenging. And then the Knicks is going to be very difficult.
really, Grant, if you look further ahead too into the schedule, which we have up, your longest home stretch the rest of the season. Check this one out: Memphis, Cleveland, Chicago, Milwaukee, Boston, and then Oklahoma City and Portland. Milwaukee and Boston, Grant, are a back-to-back.
That's murderer's row right there. That's murderer's row. Memphis, Cleveland, Chicago. Take Chicago out of that row. Milwaukee, Boston, Oklahoma City, and an improved Portland team. Look at that.
That's the stretch.
Yes. Yep.
That
Now,
is
again, we can't forecast players that are going to be on the floor and aren't going to be on the floor, but on the surface, that looks absolutely brutal right now.
Yeah, that is going to be a hard one. Arnold, we would come to you, my man, but you're glossing. Grant already said no glosses. Baki, what's up tonight?
Hey, Baki.
Hey, what's up? How are you?
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Well, not much to say after you two mentioned everything about it. So after Mike Brown got fired, you notice, as we already mentioned here, a lot of differences in the Kings game, especially defense. So they are ranked as number one defense in the last 7 games, if I remember. So also some other defensive.
That's a little misleading to me, but go ahead. That's a little misleading to me, but that's fine. They are what they are.
Okay, go on if you have something.
No, I just think it's misleading. I think those numbers, you played Dallas without, Luka, without Kyrie, without Klay Thompson, without, and then you played Philadelphia without Embiid and Oubre. You played Memphis without Ja Morant. You also had some players that were out, but I just think those numbers are a little bit misleading based on the fact that the other teams were all without their leading scorers.
Okay, but Grant, how much do you counterbalance that with? You fired your coach, you couldn't win a game, and you turned that.
That's the thing I was just about. You put the word out of my mouth, Ryno. Well, I'm not. I'm saying all this is only about one question I have in my mind, and it is who you would miss more in the situation like this. I mean, I'm not someone who is not satisfied with having 7 in a row when the train was going downhill big time. I saw a lot of great things in the last 7-8 games, maybe more. But still, the main question I have is, let's say you play the game, for example, without Sabonis. Your chances to win the game are 7, 8, maybe not even 7 or 8, maybe 3-4% if you're gonna win the game without Sabonis. So if we put that out of context, so who you pick if you need to pick one of them, Malik or Fox? Who would be the guy that you would miss until the
Well, I got to tell you, I always thought it was Fox, and I've been always saying if Fox gets hurt, the Kings are in deep trouble. I've said that time and time again, but I changed my mind right now. I think they're more in trouble without Monk right now than they are without Fox. But it's the first time I've ever said that, by the way. So I'm also backtracking. I'm not backtracking. I'm changing my opinion. I think right now they miss Monk more.
Yeah, I changed it too. So we are exactly the same. So I was just the same as you. But now I'm after everything I saw, I'm 100% positive that they cannot win without Monk more games than they can win without Fox, because they showed without Fox they can find the solutions in the defense and the offense and with the bench. I don't know, the perspective that coaches have, I'm not gonna say all goes with Doug Christie and some particular plays of the game or something. But okay, let's say coaching stuff. But they are finding the solutions without Fox. But I mean, this game was great example how, I mean, without Monk, you don't have an energy, you don't have it in the offense, you don't have it in the defense. We know exactly what Fox can bring, but without Monk, I mean, it's not the same thing. I don't know what you think about it.
Baki, here's the thing with Monk, and let's take the Fox thing away from it. You can't run your most effective offense without Malik Monk on the court, without him available. That is the pick and roll offense.
True.
You can't run it. You saw it tonight. Fox is not a pick and roll guy.
Yeah, and absolutely, that's the reason why Sacramento was winning those games. They changed basically. They changed the game. They speed it up only because of the way of the game is going. So they are playing faster. They are moving the ball faster, and maybe 60-70% is because of Monk. You're right. And when you have Fox, you know he is gonna penetrate, but most of the guys will stay outside. They will put some isolation, something like that, and it's not gonna count many more times. So with Monk, you are more wider than anything before.
Yeah, and Baki, everybody's in Fox. I don't want to throw him under the bus here. He had a couple of backdoor cuts tonight, which opened things up, but that's usually the exception to the rule. You don't have Fox cutting a lot. He's not nearly as active as everybody else is when you have that action that's going on up top. It changes the formula. I implore anybody to go look at the advanced analytics on when the ball moves for this team. It jumps off the page, and that's what Doug Christie is seeing and encouraging.
Yeah, that was always my question. How they managed to show the videos and seeing the videos from the previous games in 2-3 days. I mean, it's crazy. I think sometimes you need 5 days for every game to check what they do right, what do they do wrong, and
well, I think the big picture is the Kings look a lot better with Doug as coach. I mean, and sometimes you get swayed by just the record, but if you look further into it, it's a better team right now. Does that mean it's going to continue? No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. But based on the sample size that we have, I don't know how anyone could argue against that.
Did they look more pressured when they played with Mike Brown than in comparison with now playing with Doug?
Do they look fresher now?
They look like more loose. For me,
they just look better. I don't really know how I'm going to characterize it. They just look better. Yeah. Thanks, Baki.
Thanks, Baki.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
So
I don't really think, Ryan, we can debate that, can we? They look better.
No, they definitely look better. They're thinking less and they're playing more. Let me take you to this really quick. So this is sorted by net rating. These are your two-man combinations. Some of them you have to throw out because guys don't play a lot, and when they play together, their net rating might be through the roof. But you look at the guys that do play the most. DeRozan and Keon Ellis together have a 4.0 net rating. DeRozan and Sabonis, a 3.6. Sabonis and Monk, a 3.6. Sabonis and Murray, a 3.4. Monk and Murray, a 3.4. Sabonis and Ellis, a 3.4. It's not until you get down here that you have a De'Aaron Fox combination that has a significantly good net rating. In fact, his net rating with Sabonis is just about half of what Monk and Sabonis is together. And so there's a piece that just does not fit. It doesn't fit. It shows you the ball moves. These guys play better off of each other.
Well, and then the net rating that I look at is right in front of me right now, and it's the only one that really sticks out to me is the Kings through almost half the season are 500. Now you can say, yeah, but they're playing better. Okay, that's fine. But you can't just erase the bad part of the season and only talk about the good part. They're 20-20. And here's the other deal. They're still 10-12 at home. That's terrible. That's not like, okay, that's awful. That has to get significantly better here in the second half of the season. Significantly.
But I think to the Kings' credit, we've seen a little bit of that formula. It's the defense turning to offense, and it's playing ping pong or tennis with the crowd. When you do that, that's an overwhelming advantage for the Kings at home, Grant.
Here's what I worry about. And I say worry is probably not the right word, but it's something that I wonder about. Not worry, I wonder. I wonder what's going to happen when this team goes through their next bad stretch, because they'll have one. It may not be like it was
Right.
a couple of weeks ago, but they'll go through a bad stretch where they lose 3 or 4. Then what happens? Right? That's what I want to see with this team.
So let's say they do go through that stretch. What are you looking for besides just bouncing back and winning?
I'm looking at how they lose those games more than just the actual score. Because one thing that I've been very impressed with is the Kings' competitiveness over the last 2 weeks. So I'm okay if you go to Oklahoma City and lose 120 to 117. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
I'm okay I'm okay if you go to Denver on the second night of a back-to-back, which is the toughest back-to-back in the NBA, where you get into your hotel after 3 a.m. and you lose a tight game to Denver, because I don't expect them to win that game. I'm okay with that, but just be in the game, be competitive. I want to see this team be competitive in their losses.
I like that. Okay, so everybody really quick talking about analytics. We go off net ratings around here. Here's your Kings net rating, 2.7 as a team. Here's your plus minuses individually. Sabonis 4.0, Keon Ellis 3.6, Malik Monk 3.4. Devin, you got to throw him out. Hasn't played enough minutes. DeRozan 2.7. Keegan Murray, although he can't make a 3, 2.2 this season. Trey Lyles 2.0. Then you get down to De'Aaron Fox at 0.9, y'all.
What's he at?
0.9.
Well,
net rating is wins and losses. That is what Grant, is that the stat that everybody looks at in the NBA? Your differential.
Yes. Yes. Your differential's off a little bit on the team. Their differential right now is 2.2 after tonight.
Excuse me. So that updated after tonight. So let me refresh. So it does. NBA.com has not refreshed those.
That's okay. Right now,
tonight.
After tonight, it's plus 2.2.
So, yeah. So it's, and for those saying it's just a numbers thing, it's also an eyeball thing. Let me ask you this. Did you have more fun watching this team tonight, or did you have more fun watching that team in Boston? Grant, which team was fun?
Yeah, well, I had more fun watching the team in Boston. I thought tonight's game was really badly played, to be honest with you.
It was really hard.
Played, I should say.
And really, Doug Christie, I like what he's preaching. In theory, it's worked to this point, but you got to play a certain way for that style to work.
It's now time for a Rant with Grant, brought to you by EDH Motors. You go to edhmotors.com. You'll get all the information. David and Adam, just two guys trying to do something different and better. It's a long overdue new concept. You go to edhmotors.com, and you can check out everything that they have to offer. And if you don't find what you're looking for, don't worry about it. David and Adam have over decades of experience in the automotive industry. They will get exactly what you're looking for, and you'll take delivery at their auto lounge at the El Dorado Hills Town Center. So that means you don't have to go to a dealership and deal with all of that. You're going to love the concept and everything that they can do for you. Go to edhmotors.com. That's edhmotors.com, and check out EDH Motors Automotive Reimagine. So we do this almost every night, where we're talking about De'Aaron Fox. And it's interesting. It's a good topic. It's debatable. It's our opinion. You have your opinion. Doesn't mean we're right and you're wrong, or vice versa. But I think there are a lot of people that are only hearing what they want to hear when it comes to the comments of Ryno and yours truly. We're not saying that Fox is not a good player. We acknowledge that he's a very good player. We're not trying to run him out of town like some of you suggest. We're not suggesting that you absolutely have to trade Fox. We're just pointing out the difference that the Sacramento Kings looked the eyeball test without even going into the numbers that Ryno just talked about, which you can't ignore. But if you just don't even look at the numbers and use your eyeball test, the Kings are a different looking team when Fox is on the floor and when he's not on the floor. And we talk about this being a jigsaw puzzle, and the pieces need to fit. I was questioning a couple of weeks ago whether DeMar DeRozan fits with this team. Good player, very good player, but is it the right fit to this team? Now we're questioning, is De'Aaron Fox the right piece to this puzzle? And I'm kind of in the neighborhood of Ryan right now, where I'm very open to a trade. I'm not saying you must trade him. Ryan's not saying you must trade him. We are just saying, you have to look at the big picture and your eyeball test. And then if you want to throw in the analytics with the numbers that Ryan just pointed out, then you can't really ignore that. And you can't really debate that Monk and Sabonis are significantly better with the pick and roll than Fox and Sabonis. Like, that's not even really debatable. Okay, we get the check in that column. We win that part of the argument. So for those of you that want to attack us or critique us or criticize us for saying negative things about Fox, we're not really saying negative things about Fox. We're saying that things seemingly are working better without Fox. That's not being negative. That's just pointing out the positives. The bottom line is the Kings are 500. They're 500. The bottom line is De'Aaron Fox has played 8 years with the Kings, and they haven't won a playoff series and have only been in the playoffs once. Like, you can't just ignore that. So be open-minded about this, okay? And use your eyes and then back them up with some numbers. I think the Kings' future right now may look better without Fox than with Fox. And by the way, I'm entitled to change my opinion in a few weeks if I want to, because I just changed my opinion recently about the Kings needing a healthy Fox more than they need, need a healthy Monk more than they need a healthy Fox. And I've never said that before. So I'm entitled to change my opinion once in a while. But for those of you that are like ramming it down our throats that we want Fox gone, that we're anti-Fox, no, we're not. We're not. We're just pointing out what appears to be an obvious trait going on right now with the Kings. And the piece of the puzzle with Fox, it's not a perfect fit right now. It's not a perfect fit. And that's my rant for tonight.
Well done, partner. Real quick, we talked about this as well, and I want to get your take on it. You think teams at the deadline, if the Kings are looking to make a move, are going to be asking for Keon Ellis?
Yes, I do. I do.
How important is Keon Ellis to this puzzle that you're talking about?
I think he's important, but I also think that between now and then, it would also depend on the development of Devin Carter.
Yeah.
And then what could you get back and what would you get back in return for Keon Ellis? The one thing that you'll lose with Ellis that you will not gain with Carter, you'll lose the three-point shooting. That's not Carter's forte right now. And so that would be a big drop-off. We can talk defense all you want, but if you want to talk about the three ball, that would be an issue because the Kings aren't a good three-point shooting team to begin with.
Yeah, it's a good point. What's your timeline for Devin offensively? Like, what are you looking for at least through this season? Next season?
I don't see it happening this year. I think it's too difficult to expect that to happen.
It seems like he can create a little bit more, though. I do like that part of his game. He's been throwing a couple of grenades, and he's finished around the rim or created opportunities for others.
Yeah, I'm more in reference to the perimeter shooting.
Yeah, for sure. The three-point shooting. Do you think do you think that shot, based on your opinion and your knowledge of the game, needs to be tweaked at all with that arc?
I think it does, yes. And I think that will, again, you have to remember, he didn't have any practice in the summer. He didn't have any training camp, right? He had months of inactivity. So I'm going to give him some time.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. He gets plenty of time. And he tore it up in a couple of games in the G League and came straight to the NBA. So he's entitled to it. And I guess that's where you need the minutes to grow. You don't really know what you have until you get a bigger sample size of him.
But again, you have to factor in this win streak, which has been great. And it got you back to relevance, but you're still at the bottom tier of the West of the stacked 10 teams, tied with San Antonio at 500. And, let's face it, you guys still got an uphill battle here. It's not like everything's fine and dandy because you just won 7 games in a row. All that did was it got you back into it. That's what it's done. Now you have to take advantage of that.
100%. The schedule gets tougher, as you laid out and we've talked about. But I think the day that both of us sat here talking about Mike Brown being fired, I didn't realistically see a path
I
to
didn't
the
either.
Kings having a reset button, which is exactly what this winning streak has been.
I agree. That's exactly right. Because you called it perfectly before the 2 Laker games. You called it a fork in the road, and the Kings drove their vehicle right off the cliff, right?
Off the cliff.
And you were right, and that was the start of a awful stretch for this team that culminated in Mike Brown losing his job.
Crazy. With the extension too, and now a deadline coming up with a GM that's got a lot of pressure on him, Nibs.
If Mike Brown had won one of those 2 games, he'd still be coaching the team right now.
Think so.
Yep, because they wouldn't have gone into the slide the way they did, because they lost to Denver before that, 130 to 129, in a game where they were also without a very key player in that game. And I can't remember who the Kings were without that game, but they still
Keegan Murray.
All right, so they lost 130 to 129. And I think with Murray, they win that game because defensively, he would have been able to do a much better job on Gordon, okay?
Yeah.
Or whomever. And then you lost that game, which was very winnable on a final possession. That started your downslide on that homestand. Then you lost 2 games to the Lakers. Think about how those 3 games basically put the Kings where they are in terms of Mike Brown. It was those 3 games.
It's an excellent point. And the snowball turned into an avalanche where you have that Detroit ending where you lose on a 4-point play.
Yep. And you lost it because your guy was sleepwalking defensively and then didn't want to take accountability after the game with De'Aaron Fox. And Mike Brown, that was the last game he coached.
Yep. That was it. That was a wrap. And, did Vivek get it right? We'll see. Everybody's talking about that here in the chat. We're going to try this very quickly. Timothy, what's going on tonight?
Yeah, me.
That's why we're going quick.
Yeah, we like that. Hey, I want to tell you about Bennett's and Ryno. We love talking about their weekend brunch. It's outstanding. Their happy hours, their daily happy hours, sips and tastes 2 to 6. Prime seafood and steak at Bennett's. We encourage everyone to get down there and see Brian and his staff. Bennett's West Side Grill is awesome, but so are their other 2 locations in Roseville and Sacramento. You'll love them. Same great quality food wherever you are. Prime seafood and steak at Bennett's. Go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com to make a reservation and more. That's Bennett'sRestaurants.com.
If you got a big group or even a smaller group, you want a private dining room, Bennett's is the place. They can also bring it to your house as well. We both saw that spread. We've showed that spread, Grant. I wouldn't leave my house for days if Brian Bennett came and made that here.
And again, there's the logo. Bennett's, the West Side Grill in Rockland, is the newest of their 3 restaurants. Check it out. We love it. It is awesome.
Good stuff. Well, all good things come to an end, but exciting time still. You got Houston on your home court, national TV. And as you said, hopefully you have Malik Monk back in a healthy roster.
Yeah, and not only are you playing Houston, but they're playing tomorrow night. So there are 2 things that can happen tomorrow night. It can go into an extended game where the starters play a lot of minutes, or you can have a player that turns an ankle, or, there's a lot of issues that can happen. So you're going to be playing a Houston team that, regardless of what happens tomorrow, is going to be somewhat fatigued. And now, you're also coming off an East Coast trip where we talk about the first game back.
True.
So just keep that in mind. But the place is going to be off the hook on TNT. And again, you can't have the table set any better, but you really need Malik Monk on the floor for the game coming up on Thursday.
Well said. If you're going to the game, bring it. It's going to be a fun one.
Tomorrow, 3:00, Sean Salisbury. We're going to talk NFL playoffs. We're going to talk college football playoffs. That's tomorrow at 3:00. And then an hour later, Ryno and Jerry with the weekly Kings Roundtable. So we got 3:00 with Sean, 4:00 with Jerry. Are you doing a 1:00 show tomorrow?
Nope.
Okay, so no problem. We got our Kings Roundtable to cover all of that at 4:00.
Yep, exactly right. I'm laying out so I can watch you and Sean, buddy.
Appreciate it, man.
Always
I can't wait. Tomorrow, 3:00. Hey, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us right here on the postgame show. No beam lit tonight, but I think you got a good chance to have it lit for the homestand with Houston, Washington, and Golden State coming in. Enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye now.